Welcome in, everybody. I am Ben Parker. That is Austin Freed, and that is Shane Ratliff. And I am really glad to have the whole crew here tonight. We have been facing all kinds of difficulties over the past couple of weeks, but we have bravely fought through every one of them to bring you Denzel Boston from the Washington Huskies, soon to be on an NFL team here in just a few months. This is Pro Football Enterprises. We are a sister network with Box Score Network, and we are proud to bring you a number of top NFL draft prospects, some of whom will even at some point decide to or have decided to go back to college football for another year, most of which, though, will be in the draft. Tonight, Denzel Boston, 6'4", 209 is the average of what I saw out there on the websites. I've got both sets of numbers here, 24 numbers and 25. As always, there could be a typo somewhere. So if you see one, just write it in the comments. And I had one on Keldrick Falk the other night, so apologies for that. That's okay. If you see one, just give us a shout out, and we'll try to make mention of that. Catches in 24, 63. Had the same number, almost 62 in 2025. Receiving yards were 834 in 24. Went up a little bit to 881 in 2025. Yards per catch, of course, went up a little bit with that in 2025. And then his touchdowns are up a little bit, 11 to 9, 25 over 24. Austin, let's go straight to you first for setting the table here on Denzel Boston.
Yeah, Denzel Boston is your big prototypical X receiver that has been not phased out of the National Football League, but it is waning. You see less of this type of guy these days. I believe it's Matt Harmon who's coined the term the sacrificial X, where these players are less actual productive wide receivers who have 1,000-yard receivers and things like that, and they are more the take up coverage, go just hold a safety while we work underneath, and then take a couple big shots to you again. That's sort of the first glance look at this receiver. Think of your Mike Williams of the world, right? Downfield guy purely. What I do think this guy adds when you really look into the tape, though, is a little bit of juice after the catch. He's not super shifty. I'll take that back. He's not shifty at all. He does have a little bit of get up to him. I remember when I watched this tape before this season, I was saying I think he's like pretty fast once he gets up to that top gear, and I still think that's true. I feel like maybe it's not as much as I had hoped or wanted this year. I feel like there was a couple times I was just like looking for that last gear and I didn't think he quite got to it. Another thing I talked about in the show before we did on him before the season was I wanted to see him improve in his like deep ball receiving, and I think he did that. I feel like he really took that level of his game up to another level, as well as his red zone ability and the red zone threat, which already was his best part of his game, and I really think he just amplified that. Really strong hands in the red zone, and that's really the most important trait is just being a go-getter, having the physicality to beat a guy, and then having the hands, the strong hands to win at the catch point and hold on to the ball and not get it knocked out of your hands. So he does a lot of things well. I kept seeing Eric Decker when I watched him for all the wrong reasons. And I do really love Eric Decker and that he had a tremendous career for like a good 5 year stretch with the Jets. And if you could tell me he had Eric Decker's career, I would absolutely take that because it is a good one. But when you look at the frame and the way people talk about him, you want more than that. Specifically in, I think the vertical threat aspect of his game. Like this is kind of the prototypical mold he is. You want him to be more of a deep down the field threat than just Eric Decker, who I think excelled in more of the timing routes, the intermediate stuff. And I think that's one thing that Denzel Boston really goes under the radar for him. I don't see a whole lot of people talk about it, but I really like his nuance in the timing routes, the comebacks, the 12-yard comebacks, the digs, the even the double moves, where he's timing it up with a pump fake from the quarterback or things like that, like things that require actual nuance. He really developed that this year. That was something that was really lacking in his game. I feel like he improved in that aspect more than anything else for me. Overall, I think this player is an outside receiver. They're not one of those big slots to me. I don't think he's going to move on the inside. I just don't think he has that sort of agility to play on the inside. But as an outside receiver, I can see him being successful as your traditional downfield guy who actually has a lot of that juice as an intermediate guy as well. And I think he will be a pretty well-rounded player. The one thing, again, that I talked about that I wish he had better was just that like pure speed, like start fast off the line, jump off the line, and just beat your guy downfield instantly. I think he is more of your slow ramp up speed guy. So overall, I like the player.
Austin, I'm gonna hit on a couple of things you said right there because I hate to move on from it while as you laid it out there fresh that I thought were really good. Number one is we're seeing a little bit less of this kind of receiver the past few years because so many of these coordinators just want to work over the middle and underneath, and build everything off of that. So he is, his type becomes the second, third option, not necessarily an afterthought, but you're not the first option anymore. So you're 100% right on that. And then the other thing I thought you were right on for his frame and for the way we hear people talk about him, I want more than what I actually am seeing, but there's still a lot that I like here. So I'll come back to some of that in my notes. Shane, it is a privilege to have you. I don't know how many feet of snow and ice you were buried under here, but if you would please tell everybody what the temperature might be in a couple of days, and then give us your thoughts on Denzel Boston.
We're looking at a with wind chill at a negative 46, but for the next couple of days, it's going to be real under 7 degrees below zero. So perfect
Negative
football weather.
46. Yes. All right, Shane, give it to us, man.
So to hit off a couple of things that Austin brought up. Uh, Without a doubt, I think the red zone is where Denzel Boston makes his money.
Mhm.
Um, Strong hands, a good vertical, already has that body frame. I don't think he's as physical as his father was. Not the same frame, but uh, I think he has those type of skills. The one thing that Austin mentioned, where there's that sacrificial X, he gets a lot of routes in Washington's offense that people now use in the NFL as a wide Y, that split tight end that's no longer in line because of his size and because, like Austin mentioned, with the comeback routes. He did in a normal offense, there'd be a lot of times where the tight end's the guy that catches the same ball he's getting. Um, the weakness, I think, like Austin said, there's no dynamic speed. Once he's up to speed, it's not like I don't think anyone's going to call him particularly slow. He's not going to run like a bad number, but he doesn't have breakaway speed. It's not, we're going to throw it, let him go get it type speed yet. Um, I don't mind the Eric Decker. I think he's right. Solid hands, going to catch the ball for you. We'll have some big games, but there's also going to be days where you don't know that he's out there on the field. Um, in all honesty, if he's like a perfect Buffalo Bills draft pick, this is the guy that they pick as an X that's going to be okay, catch a couple of balls, but not get you enough points to get you to the next round of the playoffs. I think he's one of those guys that his physical numbers may help him a lot at the combine, but I think people are going to go back and watch tape. You're going to see that the numbers are very similar between the last 2 years. No real dynamic jump in any of the particular numbers where you would have expected. Now he's probably going to be the number one weapon. You do have a change in quarterback, but where do you fit into that? The thing is, this draft, he's got some guys that are definitely going to come out that are going to be dynamic in everything they do, and that's going to hurt him in this draft. I think in another spot, his numbers would show better, but he's not going to be. Ooh. I mean, the guys that are already declared, I think it's going to be tough for him to put himself in a top 10 spot. As a wide receiver, not a top 10, nowhere close to a top 10 pick, but there's going to be a lot of wide receivers picked before him. He's going to need a specific set and a specific offense for them to think that he's going to be, an early draft pick.
Shane, excellent work. It is great to have you back. And for those of you who listen to us often, which is several of you, it's not, okay, it might be millions and millions, but it's probably not. Most of you know Shane takes a shot every couple of weeks at the Buffalo Bills, specifically at their history of wide receivers. So thank you, Shane. That's your bi-weekly shot there. Let me read off my notes, and then we'll get back to both of you for final thoughts here on Denzel Boston. My notes are very similar to what you guys put out there, so I always like it better when it works out that way, even though it doesn't always. Saw a lot of difficult catches. Defenders just draped all over him, and he made a lot of those catches, so I like that. Really like the hands. The ball just seems to stick to his hands. You guys already mentioned that. I really do like his hands. I think he's got a good set. To me, his footwork and route running looks even more smooth and polished in 2025 than in 24. I really think he did a good job upgrading that. No surprise, when you're the son of a former NFL player, and when you've been playing football for as long as Denzel has, I expected to see it. I thought it looked more polished. Austin, you already alluded to a different part of his game looking better in 25. Really devastating in the red zone. Shane mentioned that, but listen, front corner, back corner, plus a nice in route. I mean, he is absolutely devastated in the red zone. He's really got three different ways he can beat you right there, and turn these. That does help a lot, man, when you're trying to turn field goals into touchdowns. So that's a valuable asset right there. I thought he was devastating there. You guys both mentioned this, just not seeing a high gear of speed. Not what I would want. I would not throw him in the slow category at all. But I never saw him out running defensive backs. It's just not his game. In combination with that, I didn't see as much separation as I wanted versus man coverage. So that resulted in a lot of those catches, difficult catches he had to make with defenders draped all over him. He's just not separating far enough, often enough to my liking. And then Yak versus zone, I thought was average, while Yak versus man, I thought was minimal. It felt like, again, if he got time to ramp up, he could do a lot of damage, but it really felt like there was always a defender really close to him, and so he often didn't get that chance. And so, Austin, you mentioned the not super elusive, and I do think that limits what, some of the explosiveness potentially would be. There are plays where he shows physicality, definitely, but I don't see as much brute force from a guy his size as I would like to see. It really is more polish mixed with physicality. You both mentioned the physicality thing. Doesn't seem to have a vertical jump to add to his height advantage. And I don't mean he doesn't have a vert, but I mean compared to some of the other guys in the class, like a Makai Lemon, for instance, they've got a vertical jump that really changes what their height truly is. I think his vertical jump is fine. I just didn't see anything that made him feel any taller than what he already is, right? So a lot of times he maybe will out position or out footwork people for catches. I didn't see him necessarily just jumping through the roof to catch a lot of these passes. Last couple of things here. So obviously he played Ohio State and Michigan. I studied the tape on those. Aside from that, he played a lot of pedestrian defenses this year. And I mean, it was a lot, considering he played in the Big Ten. So, and again, I'm not trying to criticize him, bring him down, or question the numbers at all. They're valid. For as many pedestrian defenses as they played against, I wish I had seen more and saw more in the production area. Blocking is very average. He will sell the route, which is important, and he will put in the effort, but the blocking is really pedestrian. I just wasn't impressed with the blocking, especially from a guy his size. And I did notice a lot of teams played off man against him, which again is another way to just kind of limit the damage he can do. He'll do his catches, but they try to just swarm him immediately after that. So if you're looking for a way to attack him, Playing off man seems to be a great way to do that. I had a second round grade on him ultimately. Now, I've done literally probably 200 mocks over the past few months, and I keep finding myself very tempted to put Denzel Boston late in the first round as I have some of these teams. If I need a big receiver, I don't have a problem with that. Ultimately, I've got a second round grade on Denzel Boston at the moment. Austin, back to you for your second round of thoughts.
Shane, I really like the Bills wide receiver note there. He, to me, is everything Keon Coleman was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Uh, and Keon Coleman's a player who I'm very familiar with. Didn't really like Keon Coleman as a outside receiver. Like he, to me, is a guy who needs to be in the slot where his more shifty quickness paired with his size can actually work and his strong hands and physical body to go over the middle and things like that. That's where he would excel. What Denzel Boston is he's what the Bills thought and still do
Mm-hmm.
think Keon Coleman is, which is an outside receiver who does all that from the outside. Keon can't do that from the outside. He has tried and he has failed, and I kind of saw this coming. I think if you just swapped Denzel Boston in and told him do exactly what Keon Coleman does or tries to do, I think he'll have the success that they want to find. He's like a halfway between Keon Coleman and like an Alec Pierce for the Colts. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
just found the exact middle point of those two receivers, I think Denzel Boston is what you would get. And that's a player that I am happy to have on my football team, but I'm probably not drafting high in the first round. He, like Ben said, is a second round receiver to me, who I would feel comfortable getting late in the first, much like, Keon Coleman, I think, went pick 33 in the draft, the first pick of the second round of the Bills. That is like towards right at the top of where I would feel comfortable taking him. 28 to
Mm-hmm.
48. Like that 20 pick range right there is where I see Boston going because he has a lot of traits that are desirable. He definitely has this, sort of potential that is desirable as well. And I think he has shown the ability to have some success. Two back-to-back years of 800 receiving yards isn't anything to, scoff at. Like it is a quality wide receiver. It's not, Bolitnikov-esque or anything like that, but it's really good. So that's ultimately where I land on Boston.
Yeah, that's excellent work, Austin. Shane, I'm gonna let you wrap it up and get the final word here.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think top of the second is where I'm looking. I do think he's a guy that because Ben mentioned as well, the NFL likes family legacy because there's an understanding of what your day is going to be like as an NFL player already. And I think Denzel Boston will do great in interviews. He's going to show well. I think he'll be a good addition to a wide receiving room. I think Austin hit on exactly what my point is with the Bills. It's a miscalculation of how you're doing player evaluation on what you're looking for. And I think if Denzel Boston had Pierce's speed, we move him into the first round. Like just like Austin said, he's the tipping point between those two entities. Um, I, as a Patriots homer, if Denzel Boston's floating around, he's not somebody I'd be worried about taking a flyer on. I think there's definitely a spot for him. The key point is, like Austin said, this isn't a guy you can set to the outside and think that he's just going to flat out run everybody. This is not what he's designed to do. But he's going to be able to get you balls. He's going to be able to run the right route, and he's going to know what he's going to do. The biggest worry I have for him, when you have that size and they put you on the outside, you mentioned the blocking, Ben. If I'm that size and he doesn't have outstanding speed, you'd like him to get a little bit rougher, on the corners. And I think the other thing that's worth noting is, as you said, defensively, if they're going to man you up and play off you, they're not worried about you running away from them either. That's a little bit of a sign of disrespect on what they think you can do past them. So those are things to look for as people evaluate him into this draft.
Everybody, thank you so much for being with us. That is Austin Freed. That is Shane Ratliff. I am Ben Parker. If you have thoughts on Denzel Boston, maybe you've done tape work, and listen, a lot of you are doing tape work. You just strolling by here to get a second, third, and fourth opinion, and that's awesome. Maybe some of you are scouting for your own team, and trying to get a feel for what you would or wouldn't like for your team. And some of you have just come by because you enjoy the draft. So for whatever reason you came by, we appreciate it very much. That is Denzel Boston. This is Pro Football Enterprises. Y'all have a great one. Goodbye.